Get fired up on the WFO line.
WFO, Joe.
954-889-6796.
Just been an absolute joy to be a drag racing fan.
Go wide open, and your call may be used on the show.
Or preface by saying I'm not a Kurt Busch fan or apologist. I don't know where Greg Anderson's ego is gone, but I know one person that's going to be a big-time villain in pro stock.
That's 954-889-6796. That phone line is always WFO.
If I could have your attention in the media center, we're going to go ahead and get started with our post-race media availability. We're now joined by Brad Keselowski, driver of the number 2 Miller Lite Ford. If you do have a question, please raise your hand and we'll get you a wireless mic. We'll start here with Wolfgang.
Right over here. I have a technical question. Maybe you can
go ahead.
Yeah, I can clear up some confusion from my side. We saw a lot of problems with other drivers with tires. First of all, how was your tire situation? And according to the media release of Goodyear, they give recommendation how much pressure you run in the tire. Is your team following this recommendation, or you make your own calculation for the tire pressure?
Gunther, do you drive 45 mile an hour on a divided highway? Do you drive 45 mile an hour on a divided highway every time? Do you never go over the speed limit? Do you know American speed limits?
No,
okay. Yeah. Then you might get the analogy I'm trying to say. There is not a single team following the Goodyear recommendations. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is just one of those things in the book. But so I think that answers that question. But the other question was about if whether changing the tire compound made a difference or if we could feel it. Is that what the other question was? Oh, yeah, we didn't have any issues. Yeah, we were really good. My understanding is the guys that had tire issues ran over debris, but I might be wrong. I don't know. I had limited vision in the car to be able to see that, Gunther. Or Wolfgang, sorry. My bad. I like Gunther. I've met a lot of Gunthers when I was in Germany, and now everybody's a Gunther. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is. It's very good.
Justin Schuler, Speedway Media. Brad, you were up there on that final restart with a lot of playoff drivers around you. Obviously, Almirola trying to win his way in, Harvick trying to make sure he can point his way in. How do you kind of balance that late race aggression of trying to win the race, but trying to not ruin it for the playoff contenders?
Shoot, I don't know. I'm the last person to ask about that. I think we had a shot to win the race, and I was going to do what I could. I felt like our car was in a really good spot. I feel like without that last yell, I could have ate those guys up and gone, but the last yell kind of ran off too many laps on me. I needed those laps to be able to get there, but our car was pretty strong, like you said, and I was really proud of that.
We'll next to Chris.
Chris Knight, CatchFence.com. Brad, we go to Homestead every year, the last several years, and it seems like that everybody's got to win in order to win the championship, but you run awfully good at Homestead. You're strong in the past. Should the championship forward can be concerned about your guys' potential there next weekend? Yeah, I feel like we've had a shot to win the last 4 of the last 5, and they just keep slipping through our hands. But we've certainly been right there, and I would expect similar in Homestead for sure.
Do you have any other questions for Brad?
Brad, Alex Rarick, Fanside. Did you think the new start-finish location had a bigger impact on this race than expected today?
I didn't expect anything, so the answer would be no. But I do think it had a pretty good effect on the race with the entering turn 1 on the old track, which is now turn 3. You just couldn't pass, and so this corner down here you can pass on a restart, and I think that changes the game a lot.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
All right. If I could have your attention in the media center, we're now joined by our championship Ford driver contender, Kevin Harvick, driver of the number 4 Busch Light Ford, and our Sunoco Rookie of the Year, William Byron, driver of the number 24 Hertz Chevrolet. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get you a wireless mic. We'll start here and work our way over.
Justin Schuler, Speedway Media. William, you said about, I think it was last week or the week before, that this was one of the seasons that you wouldn't wish this on anyone else, but yet you still won Rookie of the Year. Any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, we haven't had very good runs, to be honest, the whole year. But this run, we kind of went a completely different direction with what we were doing and seemed to pay off, and just kind of had a solid weekend other than qualifying. So got some damage there, but we were able to come back, I guess, and finish ninth, so that's decent, and going to Homestead next week.
We're going to Jeff and then to Bob.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Kevin, a comeback today that saved your season. Where would you rank this, and did you think that you had a chance when everything had gone wrong in that instant?
I never really thought about it like that. I just thought about getting it. My main job was to try to get it back to the pits without crashing it into the wall or having a tire blow out and rip the fenders off. I felt it go down going into turn one, and just kind of tried to nurse it into turn three and back around. So I couldn't get down over there, and I just drug everything all the way around and drug the splitter off, and so it never really handled as good after that. But we've made some adjustments to our car and got ourselves back in contention there in the second stage, staying out, and it worked out okay.
And we're also joined by Martin Truex Jr., driver of the 78 Auto Owners Insurance Toyota. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Hocker, ESPN. Kevin, what would you describe your emotion as? Relief, excited, the fact that you get to go vie for a title, or
just another day, Bob?
It's not just another day. It was a day where you could have been knocked out of the championship.
You don't do anything different. I would prepare no different next week if I was out as I would if I was in. So that's what I always tell you guys: win or lose, it's the same prep every week.
Did we have any questions for William Byron? We'll go to Matt.
Matt Weaver with Auto Week for William. The season's not over yet, obviously, but what are the things that in this rookie year that you feel the most proud of, even though the numbers don't necessarily show it as being something that's great?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say just kind of how we've grown, or how I've grown. There's been a lot of things to learn, so just how I've improved those things, or how people have helped me improve those things, and looking forward to next year, what we have there. And I think probably some of the decent runs that we've had, I look at the road courses went pretty well for us, and then some of the short track races went well. So probably look at that stuff and be proud of that.
Do we have any other questions for William? All right. Well, thanks for joining us, William. Congratulations. All right. We'll go to Dustin and work our way over to Wolfgang and Bob.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Kevin, what did you feel like was your biggest challenge today then with everything that you kind of had to go through?
Flat tire, just, leading the stage there, coming to the white, and tire goes flat. So, that just put us behind and drug the front of the car off, and the splitter and everything up front was drug off, and it just, that was really the turning point in our day to not have everything go right. But, I mean, we got ourselves back in contention there, and, we're going in the right direction, and wound up just finding a spot at the end to just survive there and get to the finish.
Wolfgang?
A question to Martin. Especially the second part of the race was very chaotic. How did you manage to stay out of all this chaos and not involved in all these problems?
Right place, right time, a few of them. The big crash off at turn 2 on that restart on the backstretch was, it was close. There was cars, smoke everywhere. I just basically stopped going into turn 3 and was lucky to find a hole to get through. So just a little bit of good fortune, a little bit of the right place, right time. And, the rest of the day we just, we battled and got what we could out of the car and did what we had to.
Bob Hocker, ESPN. A couple more for you, Kevin. First off, do you know, Goodyear said it was likely a puncture, but they weren't sure. Do you have any idea what caused the...
I don't.
Okay. And on the restart with Kyle leading and Eric second and you third, did you feel your car was good enough that you had a chance to win, or did you feel like your championship bid was more on how Almirola was going to run?
I just needed to get my car set on the bottom and try to get everything so that I could get a good exit off the corner, and that was really all I was worried about.
Wolfgang?
Another question, follow-up from Bob. Kevin, was his tire went down? You said already, when I understood it correctly, the splitter was damaged or broken or whatever. Did you not was fearing when this tire went down, you had the tire problem, that maybe some more serious damage could be done to the suspension, for example?
In that instance, you just hope that the sway bar stays connected, and that's really the biggest worry. So I hadn't looked under the car and seen how bad it drug it all off, but it was good enough to keep going. So and the sway bar was still hooked up, so that was the main thing.
Jerry
Jordan, KickingTheTires.net and PRN. Martin, with everything that's happened with you this season, defending your championship, what does that mean to you with the changes that have happened?
Well, it's exciting for us, I think, to be in this position again. This is our third trip to Homestead in 4 years, which I think is something we're all really proud of as a group, and obviously as going to be our last race together as a complete group. It's definitely going to be a special weekend, and all we can do is prepare the best we can and do the same thing that we've done down there before, and just try our best. That's all you can do at the end of the day. So we've got a great team. It's been an amazing ride together, and hopefully we can get down there next week and make our owners proud and just our potential.
We'll go up front to Lee.
My question is for Martin. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Lee Spencer Racing Reference. Can you just tell us a little bit? I know you've said it before about what Barney means to you, but seeing him out there today, it's almost bittersweet, talking to him with everything he's put into the organization, and to see it come from, basically nothing to a championship caliber team.
Yeah, I think it's just really still kind of sinking in. I think for most of us, when you're doing this job and you're so focused on what you're doing, you kind of really just block out everything in the outside world. You just get so focused in, and it's we understand it's here. It's our last week, but it's cool that we're going to Homestead with a chance to win it in his last race. And I said out there on pit road that it's my 5 years there has been amazing. He's been a great guy to work for. Just thinking about all the people that he's given opportunities to over the years, and how some of those guys started in Colorado 12, 13 years ago working with him, and just a special group. It's been a special time. It's been a lot of fun, and he's just been a great guy to work for. I think Cole and the guys will tell you that he's given them everything they needed to be the best they can be, and the same for me. So that's been fun, and hopefully we can reward him next week. Oh, there's no question that it turned. Going there was the best thing I ever did. The first year, you'd have thought I thought I was probably about to get fired, and then we turned it around. So definitely been an exciting 5 years for sure.
Go ahead,
Martin. With the last stage having 2 red flags and multiple cautions, now you've been to Homestead many times, but is that as difficult of a final stage at Phoenix as you can remember, even if you weren't necessarily involved, just to have to get through all that?
Not really. It was pretty straightforward for us. By that point, we were in pretty good shape. So, we were just trying not to put ourselves in too bad of a spot, and just trying to get to the end.
Dustin
Long, NBC Sports. Kevin, what was it like to work with Tony in this way, since you guys hadn't done that before?
Yeah, really, the biggest thing that Tony brings is just a ton of experience. Obviously, a familiar face to the NASCAR officials, and he's been with Stuart Haas for a long time and worked with all those guys and worked with everybody in the shop. So, he's very calm, sitting up on the pit box, unless he's winning the Daytona 500. Yeah, then he gives us something that we all remember. But, for the most part on the radio, he was just dead calm all weekend and just, pretty laid back with everything. And everybody just did their job. So, the thing you got to remember is those guys have all been together for 5 years. And, there's the Internet works well from Phoenix to North Carolina as well, too. So,
are there any other questions? We'll go over to the side.
Kevin, Greg Moore, Arizona Republic. I'm curious why you have such success out here in Phoenix.
Yeah, well, this has just been a great racetrack for us through the years, really, in everything that we've ever raced. It's just a place that I like coming to. I've been coming here since the mid-'80s, late 80s, to watch races, and started racing here in the mid-'90s. And, so even since they've changed the track, it's just been a place that I feel like I know well and enjoy racing in front of these fans and on these types of tracks. So it's just a good place for us.
Are there any final questions? All right. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen.
We're now joined by members of our race-winning team. We've got crew chief Adam Stevens and team owner Coach Joe Gibbs. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Please raise your hand and we will get to you. We'll start over here with Wolfgang.
Yeah, Wolfgang Munzer from Germany. Question for Adam Stevens. With his tire problems during the race, I think Logano said he had no idea what exactly happened. Did you have fearing something similar could happen to Kyle's car?
Yeah, there's always a concern, tire problems. Generally, they're camber-induced or low air pressure-induced, and we knew we weren't pushing the limits on either of those two things. But you never know if you're going to run something over, especially with the way that they were using the dog leg on the restarts. But, you try not to worry too much about things that are outside of your control. And I felt like the setup we had on the car was going to be fine on the abuse of the tires, so it wasn't overly concerning.
We'll go to Jerry.
Jerry Jordan, KickingTheTires.net and PRN. Adam, for you, you guys go out there and not having to win, but as always, put on a show and get your victory lane. What does this say about your team and Kyle Busch going into the final playoff match?
Well, I think it's important to come into the last race firing on all cylinders, and it's hard to do that when you're just riding around trying to score points. It's not like we were throwing caution to the wind by any means. We couldn't go out there and crash on the first 4 or 5 laps and not make it to Homestead. So, we had kind of the best of both worlds today. We minded our business and played it safe there the first half of the race, and then we were essentially locked in at some point in time, and then the gloves came off.
We'll go over to Matt.
I had one more for Coach.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He was joking. Coach, for you, talk about how proud you are of this organization and for JGR going back and battling for a championship.
Yeah, I always think of everybody back home, everybody that works at the shop, all the effort back there that everybody makes, everybody in the front office that gets us here and working with the sponsors. It's just it's a huge team effort. At the racetrack today, Adam led a great team effort today with pit crews. Kyle was awesome. From Coy, JD, myself, just everybody, we're thankful because we got great people and at the race shop, and it's a real team effort. This sport is different. You get to the racetrack, you got 4 teams, but they got to work together. And back at the shop, we're one big team. So it's a big deal for us. It's teamwork. I do want to say, I think this facility, getting here, awesome. And so what a great job redoing the facility. I think the fans today were great. Packed house. And we do a lot of hospitalities today. We did. A lot of our sponsors were here. It's a huge deal for us. And particularly when we get a chance to come to Phoenix. It's a big deal for us and our sponsors.
Go to Matt, and then down here to Bob.
Matt Weaver with Auto Week. This is for Adam. A question and then a follow-up. In light of the penalty talk this week, do you feel offended when fans use the word cheater in regards to crew chiefs? And do you feel like fans lack a certain education on what your job is as a crew chief?
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's just so many rules. If anybody'd ever seen the rule book, it'd take you a week to read it. And it's big, right? So, there's different levels of things, but it's our job to put the fastest car on the racetrack possible. You're up against it all the time. So it's not too hard to imagine to cross over that line in one area or another. So, if the measurement is 1 inch on something and you're an inch and 40 thousandths, are you a cheater? I would say probably not, but, there's different levels of that too. So, it's a difficult situation to be in for sure.
So with that in mind, moving forward to next weekend, what is the challenge in balancing trying to be legal and not crossing that threshold? Because more than any other race, you have less of an affordability to cross that threshold because it is the championship race.
Well, yeah, we're still held to the same standard and the same tolerances, and they will tear every square inch of that car apart after the race. And if you upset them, you'll know about it. So, That's how they keep the playing field level. So it's no different than any other weekend. The Hawkeye has been a great equalizer. The bodies are all in a very, very, very tight box. You can't really fool that thing. So all the things that make the car go fast, they have a way to check. So it'll be heads up when we get there.
We'll go to Bob and then Wolfgang and over to Lee.
Bob Hockers, ESPN. I have two for Adam. The first, when Almirola is second and you guys are first, and if Almirola wins, that knocks Harvick out. Is there any thought going through your mind, like, that wouldn't be bad if Almirola won?
Yeah, I couldn't really drive my pit box out there and make anything happen. But, we were aware of the situation mathematically. We're not oblivious to it. But, there were so many cars on us that had just pitted and had 4 tires. And, there were 15 or so laps to go. So it wasn't like we could freeze the race right there and make that situation happen. But it wouldn't have upset me if it did happen, but we weren't going to do anything to make it happen.
And Kyle told me a few weeks ago that that this year he hasn't even watched Xfinity races that he hasn't run in. That that he and Samantha go do something. Did you ever think you'd see the day where Kyle Busch would not pay attention to a NASCAR race?
No, I watch them because they're highly entertaining, regardless of if I learn anything. But this week there was plenty to learn with the track configuration and the restarts, and you always want to watch and see how tires wear and tire strategies and how the line moves around. So what he didn't pick up by watching it, I watched and told him about this morning and last night. So he gets the information one way or another.
Do you think that's good for him to help focus?
Whatever Kyle thinks good for him, it's working. So if that's what works for him, then absolutely.
We'll go to Wolfgang, Lee, and then Jenna.
Wolfgang Monzer from Germany again. 2 questions for Mr. Joe Gibbs. First of all, congratulations. You're representing Toyota very successfully in American NASCAR racing. Can you let me know what's the reaction over at the headquarters in Japan? Is there any reaction, or did you feel something that
Well, I have a picture on my wall. It's one of the prized possessions I have. It's Mr. Toyota with his championship ring. And supposedly he was having a bad day that day. And everybody was giving him bad information. And all of a sudden, Bob Carter presented him with that championship ring. And they said he freaked out. He ran all over the building. So I think he's a race fan. We do get, honestly, with Toyota, what's great about Toyota, it's everybody all the way through. As you go up the ranks, everybody cares about racing. They care about NASCAR. And it's great to be a part of that team. They got a great team. And, I think it goes all the way to Japan.
And the second question, if necessary, can you get some technical engineering assistance from the headquarters in Japan?
Well, mostly our engineering is pretty much set here in Charlotte for us. But I will say this. Toyota's a technical company, and at times they do assist at different times with engineering. But most of our engineers are all situated right here in Charlotte, and this is where they live.
We'll go to Lee and then back to Jenna.
LeeSpencerRacingBoys.com. Coach, you have 157 career Cup wins. Kyle Busch has now scored 47 of them. What can you say about that kind of accomplishment? And you've coached a lot of world-class athletes. Where does he rank among them?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because last week we had a discussion and we were talking about getting prepared for the playoffs and everything. And the thing that I've noticed, both in the 2 sports I've been in, football and racing, there's great athletes. A lot of guys want to be a part of the team. Some guys just being on the team is good enough. And then you have some people, when they put the helmet on game day, I've had it in football, and I'll say this, Kyle Busch over here, when he puts the helmet on, I've never seen him once where it wasn't totally intent, and you guys have all watched him. Every week he's after it. If something's in front of him, he's going for it. And it's just, I think you can have a lot of great athletes in a sport, but a few of them can stand out in that way, and I think Kyle's one of those that does.
Go to Jenna.
Jennifer, AP. Adam, the 18 and the 4 have been the two best cars all season. 8 wins. You guys go head-to-head next week for the championship. Does it mean anything to take that final step to say we're better than the 4 this year? Is that any sort of motivation?
No, I mean, there's really no measuring stick for me compared to other teams. The job that we set out to do is to win the championship, and to do that, you got to beat them all. We're certainly part of that group and part of the group next week, and that's what we intend to do.
Are there any further questions? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck. The winner of the Can-Am 500, Kyle Busch, driver of the number 18 M&M's Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. Congratulations, Kyle. We'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Please raise your hand, and we will get to you. We'll start over here with Jerry.
Jerry Jordan, KickOnTheTires.net, PRN. Kyle, you didn't have to go out there and win that race, but in true fashion, you put a show on. And how good does it feel to go into Miami with a win and momentum?
Yeah, it certainly feels really good. I mean, it's better if you got a shot to win to go ahead and win than to not. So obviously, just the beginning of the race was not quite as good as we wanted it to be. We kept working on the car all day long, kept making it better. It was super good and strong on those restarts, and we were able to kind of pick some guys off and get ourselves farther up towards the front. Wasn't sure what all was going to happen there with that. We came to pit road under green, and then the caution came out, and then being a lap down, all that. I thought that kind of ruined our chances for being able to have a win today. But overall, just a lot of crazy things happened there at the end and got us in position to where we could capitalize on that. And feels good to go off into next week with a win under our belt and hopefully do it again.
And a follow-up. One of the things that hadn't been talked about too much by the drivers is Victory Lane. What was that like, the new reconfigured Victory Lane with all the fans there and that interaction? Yeah,
it was good. There's obviously, a lot of heckling, but it's positive heckling. They're just chanting and telling you they love you and, all kinds of other things. So it's entertaining at times, but while you're trying to do a job and talk to people and have interviews and things like that, they're screaming in your ear, and so you just kind of got to figure out how to tune that out sometimes. Do you like the setup? Yeah, I mean, the setup was nice. Overall, where the guys, where all of us kind of stand, where the photographers are, we need multiple levels. So, like, we can put guys down front or sponsor guests down front, so then there's multiple levels so people can be seen. That's my suggestion. Fix it. I don't know why people don't ask me what we need in Victory Lane. I go to enough of them. Like, just ask me what we need. All right, I'll fix them.
We'll go to Jeff, back to Wolfgang, then down here to Lee.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. So on NBCSN, you said that it did cross your mind that if Almirola wins a race, it eliminates Harvick. As somebody who would never let even your son win a race, I'm curious how much that did cross your mind. Did you think, this might not be the worst thing here? Like, can you go into that a little bit?
Well, I mean, yeah, it crossed my mind, and having him alongside of me for a restart, you always got to think about who you're restarting against and what their objectives are and what their agenda is. So, obviously having the restart with Almirola next to me, I figured he's going to try to do some things. So you've got to be ready for some of those moments and what's going to happen. But overall, I just knew that if I got a good restart and just got myself out front and got clear, that I could go away and not have to race any of those guys and worry about that. So, I was just kind of contemplating if he got by me and got in front of me, then what's next, But my first and foremost is just go away. I mean, no, I don't think the 10 was capable enough of being able to lead the race and not have somebody else pass him. You know what I mean? Like, if I would have let the 10 go and just rode behind the 10, then I think the 2 would have won. So that would have been dumb.
We'll go to Wolfgang.
Yes, thank you. Kyle, congratulations first. 2 questions for you. Number 1, did this interruption, especially the 2 red flags, disturb your rhythm?
Yeah, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Just I felt okay with it, we just hit it, I think, and then we rode around for a lap, and then they called the red flag. So then we were kind of sitting there with with brand new tires on the car, but it wasn't all that big a deal, so we were okay.
And the second question is, I think shortly after the race, Keselowski said he thinks he had a quicker car or faster car than you, and he came close I think 0.5 seconds in the finish. Did you expect that he launch an attack in the final stages of the race?
Yeah, he was mounting one, that's for sure. You know, he came from a little bit of a ways back and was closing in on us. I could see him in the mirror getting a little bit closer here and there. I was just trying to make sure I hit my marks as good as I possibly could those last 10 laps. And it seemed like for about the first 5, I matched him time for time. And then after that, he was about a tenth faster than me. So that's just kind of the way our day was. We were really, really good on restarts for first 5 especially, and then maybe for about 15 we could kind of hold guys off, and then after that it just seemed like others were better than us, but we didn't have to worry about that with the short run at the end.
We'll go to Lee and then to Chris.
Lee Spencer, RacingVoice.com. First of all, did you get any damage in that incident between the 4 and the 38?
Yeah, just slight damage. There was I don't know if there was a hole in the fender. I saw they put tape on it during our pit stop there, so there must have been something.
And can you reflect on your 51st win and being 11th on the all-time list?
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Just, to continue to capitalize on opportunities. That's what wins are. And, today was one of those days where I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do that. The 2 was arguably the fastest car today. I think the 9 was as well, too. So I felt like we had a good top 5 shot at it anyways. And, with the restarts, the way the restarts kind of went, it got us in position and got us to where we needed to in order to go out there and push hard and to try to gap those people off that restart there, the final one. And felt good. Feels good to get 51. That's a special number to me. I like that number. Feels cool to be able to continue to climb up the ladder of the all-times win list.
Go to Chris, and then over here to Bob.
Yeah, ChrisMikeGetFence.com. Kyle, is there any clear favorites for the championship for next weekend?
I don't think so. I don't know how you could pick a favorite necessarily. Harvick's won there. We've won there. The 78's won there. Harvick's beat us all. I beat Harvick the year I won. Truex beat both of us last year, so I think it's just a matter of being able to go out there and race your race and do what you can with what you got and have an opportunity to be able to be leading the race essentially on that last lap. That's what it boils down to. Anything can happen in between, and we've seen it the last few years, kind of how crazy things can get with the Logano and Carl restart, with last year with me having to run down Truex and then not quite having enough to be able to pass him. Some other years it's kind of been maybe anticlimactic, but I would predict this is the best 4, the closest 4 that have been in our sport in a long time.
We'll go to Bob.
Bob Pockris, ESPN. Any part of you wishes Harvick was up there at the end? You guys could just kind of race 1-2 for the win, just because he's been so good here and just kind of all the drama surrounding him this week.
No, not really. I'm actually kind of surprised that he didn't, that he wasn't closer to the 4 or the 2. Like he didn't come and fly up there and gain on me and get closer like the 2 car did. But I don't know what all went down there after the final restart happened. I was obviously focused on me and worried about what we had going on.
We'll go right next to Bob.
Christian Coley, FrontStretch.com. They're in a race. The points were really starting to fluctuate back and forth, and you were on the edge of possibly not making it and then making it and then not making it and making it. Were there any concerns that you might have had to point race instead of just having to really kind of protect what you had?
Yes and no. I mean, you always kind of go into a race thinking that you're wanting to win, but secondly, that you have to have a good solid day, a good points day, if you will. I didn't never necessarily think that we were on the cusp of falling out, so I just figured that we would run as hard as we could. I know the furthest back we were at one point when we were a lap down and had to take the wave around and things like that. We were still I think okay, but I knew there was plenty of race left and opportunity for us to pass some guys and get farther up towards the front. So was just focused on the job and task at hand, not where the point stood.
Go over to your left, Kyle.
Kathy Brown, pitting outside the box. During the race, when your brother was leading the race, was there at any point where you were informed of that and you were thinking, would it be better to race your brother for a championship with Stewart-Haas Racing as opposed to Kevin Harvick?
Obviously with the family tie there, that would be really cool, pretty special. I did see him leading the race and knew that would be his berth to be able to get into the Final Four. I obviously would have liked to have seen that scenario happen, and that would have been pretty fun.
We'll go to Reed, to John, and then to Michael over in the corner.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire. It's been 13 years since you won here. If I'm not mistaken, the second win of your career was here. What do you remember about that, and how are the emotions different at this point?
Yeah, this is a completely different time in my life, I guess, and feels pretty good. It's really special to be able to win here. Today, this race here was being able to win at every single venue being with Joe Gibbs Racing. So that feels really special as well too, to be able to get that done. I crossed that off for my list earlier this year, but now I was able to cross it off for Joe and everybody at JGR. So just a great feeling. Love going to victory lane anywhere, but it feels really, really cool and special that we opened up the Richmond victory lane fan zone area with a win there, and we did the same thing here. So now these wins are accounted for, and now we focus on the next one, and hopefully that's next week.
We'll go to John and then over to Michael.
John Haverland, ESPN Albuquerque. So obviously you let the race play out naturally and you won, and Almirola didn't win. But had he won and then it was you two for Homestead, would it be any less satisfying if you were to beat him rather than beating Harvick, who you've kind of competed with and dueled with all year?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to go up against the best of the best, and the strength of the season has kind of been the top three guys, the best three, which has been the 4, us, and the 78. And the 22. The 22's been solid. He's been consistent. He's been good, especially these last 8 weeks, I guess. He's kind of been the top scorer. He was in the first 8 weeks, I think, of the season as well, too. He had a good run there. So I think that, this is a good group of 4 that we're going to race for a championship with.
Challenge against the 10.
Yeah, you want to race the best of the best. So, it's the best that are there, and that we all probably thought would make the Final Four. And, there was obviously a lot of back and forths as to who could and what happened in this scenario and that scenario. But lo and behold, it all points to the top 4 guys.
We'll go to Michael and then gentleman here in the blue shirt.
Okay. Hi, Kyle. Michael Knight with the Arizona Republic. There's a lot of talk in TV, traditional and social media about what this format brings out in drivers. With the racing that we saw today, especially the second half of the race, and also both your brother and Eric Almirola, at least in my experience, showed more emotion that I'm typically used to seeing them in terms of not being able to advance. Does that kind of emotion from the guys who didn't make it, as well as what we saw on the racetrack, in your mind, does that validate the validity of this format?
I haven't seen any of their emotion, obviously, but I can only imagine that it's pretty painful, to not be able to transfer through, and for how hard you worked and for how close you have come. But with this format, with this playoff structure, there's a lot of debate back and forth as to whether or not it's fair. There's no scenario that is fair unless it's your favorite driver that's winning it, right? So we all compete underneath the same rules, and we all know what those rules are going in. And you collect stage points for your bonus points for playoff points in order to help carry you through these rounds. That's important through the beginning part of the season. And that's where some of the guys made their bread and butter. For us, for instance, we struggled last week at Texas and weren't able to get back or recover from being 2 laps down until way late in the race after anything anymore. So in that instance, that we saved our season because of the way our season had gone. And everybody wants it to go back to 0 for everybody, so you got to be the best in that 3 races. I don't agree with that. So I think the format we have now is the absolute best scenario that you could have when you look at it across the board for the entirety of the year.
We'll stay over to your left, Kyle, and then we'll come down here to Bob.
Justin Schuler, Speedway Media. Kyle, I asked you on Friday if you were going to prefer or see a preference with the high line versus the low line on restarts. You didn't know, and then you saw the truck race, Xfinity race. You had a lot of restarts there at the front. You started both on the high side and the low side. Did you have a preference now from that experience?
I liked them both. I'm good with either, whatever lane I'm in. Obviously there at the end I was just choosing the bottom. I felt like the shortest distance to turn 1 is the quickest way there. So that's kind of what my idea was there.
We'll go to Bob.
Bob Hawkers, ESPN. This isn't you talk about you haven't won here in so long, and you haven't had maybe the greatest round. So how important was it to win this race going into Homestead?
I don't think it was 100% necessary, but obviously it feels good to be able to score the win. You always want to have good momentum on your side. I think this is the best thing for me, for our team, to be able to know that we're ready to go for next week and we're as best prepared as we can possibly be. If we would have come out of here with a second or third or fourth or fifth or something like that, I think that would have been a positive day as well, too, that we could have rode high going into Miami next week, thinking that we'd still have a good shot to be able to go out there and perform the way we need to in Miami.
And you have 3 former champions and Logano, who's been in the Final Four at least a few times. So, I mean, does anybody have an edge as far as experience next Sunday?
I don't think so. I mean, 3 of us have won in the format. All 4 of us have lost in the format, So I think that's pretty interesting, the way that kind of is. But overall, if you had to say, then I would say the 3 guys that have won, it lends to them more than the guy that hasn't been able to capitalize in that format. But overall, again, it just goes back to you got to have a lot of things go your way, and there's ways in these races that things don't always go your way, and you've got to be able to rebound from those in those instances that you can when possible. And I think that we kind of did that here today. We tried to do that last week. We just could never get out of that hole. So it feels good to be going to Homestead with a shot, and you just kind of reset and focus on next week.
We'll go to Chase right there in the middle.
ChaseWilliamNASCAR.com. Kyle, you, Harvick, and Truex will all be going into Miami trying to get a second championship. What would a second championship mean to your legacy if you're able to accomplish it?
I mean, it'd be huge. I think that for me, I've been in the sport for a long, long time. I've seen my ways of losing them. I've found my way of being able to win one. So it's just one of the greatest joys in the world and one of the greatest defeats in the world that you feel on that given day, whether you win or whether you lose. So to me, I think it would obviously be a continuation of my legacy in the sport and what I've been able to do and what I've wanted to accomplish here. You want to be the best of the best, and that's better than anybody that's ever been here before. So 200 wins, 7 championships, whatever it is, you just got to go out there and continue to collect your accomplishments, and hopefully next week we can do that.
We'll go to Jim Utter.
Jim Utter, Motorsport.com. I just wondered, after everything that's taken place this season, do you expect anything less than to find the 4 of you at some point running 1, 2, 3, 4 next week? And if so, how do you feel about the other 3 as far as having a fair fight?
Yeah, there's no question that there will be a point in next week's race that we will all be running 1, 2, 3, 4. It's happened every single time these last 4 years that I've been in the playoff race at Homestead, that all of us have been around one another at one point or another in the race. The long green flag runs tend to separate you a little bit more. I remember the year that 2015, the year I won, Jeff Gordon was out there, and we were all top 4, top 5, running right around one another, whatever. And over the course of that long green flag run that we had, I think Jeff kind of faded and fell back to like 8th or 9th or something like that. So those are the times in which yourself and your team and your car and everything kind of brings itself to the forefront. So that'll kind of change the name of the game for who's got it and who ain't.
Are there any final questions for Kyle? Sorry. Thank you, Kyle.
I was just popping my neck, but no. I'll see you all again in like 4 days anyways, right? All right, figure out your more questions.
This is WFO Radio.